The silence in the chapel at Oakwood Funeral Home was thick enough to choke on. I sat in the front row, staring at the polished mahogany casket draped with white lilies that no one had chosen out of genuine affection. My grandmother, Margaret Thornton, had passed at 84, and the air felt heavy with relief more than grief. The funeral director, a thin man named Mr. Caldwell with sweat beading on his forehead, had been pleading for 10 minutes straight. Surely someone has a memory to share? A lesson she taught you? Anything kind about Mrs. Thornton. No one moved. My Uncle Victor, her oldest son, kept his eyes glued to the floor like it held the answers to life. Aunt Lydia was scrolling through her phone, pretending to check messages. My cousins Marcus, who once dreamed of opening a bakery but gave it up after her constant jabs about unrealistic fantasies, and Elena, whose engagement ended partly because Margaret called her fiancé a gold digger in training, all avoided eye contact. The handful of neighbors and church acquaintances whispered among themselves, the awkwardness growing by the second. I was 28, teaching literature at a community college in suburban Chicago, living a quiet life in a one-bedroom apartment on the South Side. I'd always been the outsider in the Thornton family drama. While everyone else jockeyed for Margaret's approval and her substantial fortune, estimated around $2 million from investments, properties, and savings, I had stepped back early. Not out of superiority, but self-preservation. Margaret didn't just criticize, she dissected. She found weaknesses like a surgeon and pressed until something cracked. I remembered one Thanksgiving when Marcus brought home his first serious girlfriend. Margaret spent the entire dinner explaining how women like her only wanted security, not love. Her voice dripping with calculated disdain. Marcus's face had turned scarlet, and the relationship didn't survive the holiday. Elena had once shown her a painting she'd poured her soul into. Margaret laughed it off as cute but pointless and suggested she get a real job in accounting instead. Those moments lingered like scars. Yet I visited her. Not often, maybe every 6 weeks, but consistently. Her sprawling Victorian house on Maple Lane felt like a museum of old money and sharper edges. I'd sit in her stiff formal parlor with its heavy velvet curtains blocking most light, listening as she ranted about the neighbors' noisy dogs, the government's incompetence, or how the family had disappointed her again. I never asked for money, never flattered her. Sometimes I'd gently disagree with her views on politics or life. Once she told me, "You're the only one who doesn't see me as an ATM, Alex." I wasn't sure if it was praise or suspicion.
Now,
As Mr. Caldwell's voice cracked with desperation, "Anyone at all?" I felt the weight of the room shift toward embarrassment. The whispers grew louder. This was turning into a spectacle of indifference. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "I'll do it." Head snapped toward me. Uncle Victor's eyebrows shot up. Marcus looked worried, like I might faint from the pressure. Aunt Lydia whispered harshly, "Alex, you don't have to put yourself through this." But I walked to the podium anyway, the wooden floor creaking under my steps. Standing there, looking out at the small crowd, maybe 30 people total, I realized I had no prepared words. The truth was ugly. Margaret had been strategically cruel, wielding her wealth like a weapon to pit family against each other in endless competitions for favor. But silence would be worse. So I began to weave a story from nothing, speaking softly, at first, like sharing a secret. My grandmother, Margaret Thornton, taught me that love often hides behind strength. When I was a boy, she'd invite me over on quiet Sunday afternoons. We'd sit in her kitchen, not the formal one the housekeeper used, but the cozy nook by the window, and she'd guide me through making her special blueberry muffins. The kind with a hint of lemon zest she swore was her secret from her own mother. None of this was true. Margaret rarely cooked, Meals were prepared by staff, and kindness in the kitchen was foreign. But as I spoke, I felt the room lean in. A few neighbors nodded slowly. I continued, my voice gaining a rhythmic flow, building that slow tension the story needed. She'd share tales from the Great Depression era, how her family scraped by, but always found ways to share what little they had with struggling neighbors. It showed me resilience isn't just surviving, it's lifting others when you can. The lies came easier now, painting a portrait of wisdom and quiet generosity that contradicted everything I knew. I described how she encouraged potential others missed, pushing not to break, but to build. Looking at Uncle Victor, I said she showed strength by being reliable in crisis, not loudest in argument. The congregation began to soften. An elderly woman dabbed her eyes. Even my family shifted uncomfortably, moved to spite themselves by this invented Margaret. I described a fictional last conversation where she emphasized that true wealth lay in what you gave away, kindness as the only lasting currency. The irony burned in my chest, but the words landed. People clapped lightly as I finished. The sound surreal in that sterile room. I returned to my seat feeling a mix of guilt and strange peace. I'd given her a dignified send-off she never earned, creating a version worth mourning. The service continued in a haze, hymns she likely never sang, prayers for mercy she seldom extended. At the graveside under gray Chicago skies, as dirt covered the casket, I felt closure not from loss, but from extending grace she withheld. As mourners dispersed, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and a tailored suit approached. Alex Harper? I'm Thomas Whitaker, your grandmother's attorney. That eulogy was remarkable. Could we speak privately tomorrow at 10? There are estate matters concerning you specifically. My confusion must have shown. I wasn't the favored one. But I agreed, the weight of the day pressing heavier. The next morning, I drove through light rain to Whitaker's downtown office. A sleek building with marble lobbies and the scent of old leather and fresh coffee. Mr. Whitaker greeted me warmly in his corner office overlooking the river, gesturing to a plush chair opposite his massive oak desk. Alex, what you did yesterday at the funeral. It was unexpected but profoundly moving. Your grandmother left specific instructions tied to that moment. I leaned forward, still processing. Instructions? I thought Uncle Victor handled most of the estate planning. He smiled faintly, adjusting his glasses. She was meticulous. Margaret spent years testing her family's character. She called them reveals, watching who sought her out purely for connection versus gain. Most failed spectacularly. Victor pushed business ideas aggressively after every criticism. Lydia distanced herself when tuition helped dried up for her kids. The cousins performed affection like actors auditioning. But you visited without agenda. Flashbacks flooded me during his explanation. Those Sunday visits weren't always pleasant. Margaret would critique my teaching career. Literature won't pay the bills like law or finance, or recount family slights with venom. I'd sit quietly, offering neutral responses, sometimes defending others gently. She tested patience relentlessly, repeating questions to gauge irritation, making sharp remarks about my cousins to see if I'd gossip along. I never bit. I listened. Stayed. Left without asking favors. Mr. Whitaker continued. She documented it all. You were the only one treating her as a person, not a resource. The eulogy was her final test. She predicted silence or minimal words. She wanted to see if someone would choose compassion, fabricating kindness if needed, over brutal honesty. He slid a thick envelope across the desk, sealed with her distinctive wax stamp. She left you everything. The house on Maple Lane, investment portfolios, bank accounts totaling roughly $2 million. The others get nominal bequests or nothing if conditions weren't met. The room tilted. 2 million. My mind raced through memories of her barbs, mocking my modest apartment, questioning my single status as wasting potential. Why me? I managed. Because you passed where others didn't, he replied. She built emotional walls after early betrayals, lost loves, opportunistic friends, a difficult marriage to my late grandfather who prioritized status over affection. Tests became armor. But your consistent decency pierced it. He left me to read the letter alone. Margaret's elegant script-filled pages. Dear Alex, if you're reading this, you spoke at my funeral with grace I never showed you. I know I was difficult, cruel even. My words wounded deeply, pushing people away to avoid deeper hurt. I criticized Victor's risks not just to control, but to test loyalty without rewards. He chased approval instead. Lydia's call stopped when I withheld help. She saw utility. Not me. You never did. Every visit, you stayed through my complaints, my silences, my provocations. You disagreed, without anger. Listened without agenda. That patience revealed your character, the rare ability to offer kindness unearned. The money isn't payment for favoritism. It's recognition. Use it to build security. But more importantly, extend the compassion you showed me. Remember, the hardest people to love often need it most. I hid my affection behind tests because vulnerability terrified me after too many losses. Your presence reminded me humanity persists. Thank you for seeing potential good in a bitter woman. It meant more than you'll know. With belated love, Margaret. Tears stung as I folded it. The cruelty masked profound loneliness. She had orchestrated family rivalries like a grand experiment, hoping someone would choose decency. Mr. Whitaker returned, confirming legal details. Probate would take months, but I could access funds soon. I left dazed, the check details in hand, questioning everything about our relationship. Back home, replaying visits, I saw patterns anew. Her repeated questions weren't annoyance, but probes for sincerity. Cutting remarks tested allegiance. The isolation she cultivated left her with millions, yet no true connections, except mine, born of indifference to her wealth. I delayed telling the family, fearing backlash. Their performances for her favor now seemed tragic. Instead, I reflected deeply, the lie at her eulogy transforming from deception to unexpected truth. Weeks blurred as I processed the inheritance. I paid off student loans quietly, bought a modest 2-bedroom house nearby without fanfare, and continued teaching. The emotional shift was seismic. In class, discussing themes of hidden motives in novels like The Great Gatsby, I'd pause longer, encouraging students wrestling with difficult parents or mentors to consider unseen pains. One evening, sorting through Margaret's house, now mine, I discovered the scrapbook hidden behind formal gowns in her walk-in closet. Dusty but meticulously kept, it chronicled my life. Elementary report cards with her notes shows quiet strength, newspaper clippings of my teaching award, a faded program from my college graduation she attended silently in the back. I later realized, photos captured moments I forgot, me at family picnics helping with dishes, captioned, always thoughtful. A picture from my high school party showed us on her porch, me sharing something on my phone as she smiled genuinely, a smile I'd never recalled seeing. Her handwriting underneath. Alex sees me as more than money. His visits are my only light lately. I sat on the closet floor, sobbing for the woman I misjudged. Her tests stemmed from fear. Betrayals in youth taught her kindness invited exploitation. She pushed everyone away preemptively, documenting my quiet loyalty as proof of hope. This revelation reframed her cruelty not as malice, but defense. The eulogy's lies felt prophetic now, describing the compassionate woman she aspired to be beneath armor. I began small changes. Visiting a difficult colleague's office with patience instead of avoidance. Listening to a student's excuses without judgment. Sensing possible home struggles mirroring Margaret's hidden loneliness. Family tensions simmered unspoken. At a gathering, Uncle Victor mentioned the will vaguely, assuming charity claims. I nodded neutrally, guarding the truth. Their disappointment highlighted the test's cruelty. They chased shadows while genuine connection won. The money funded practical dreams, a better car, quiet donations, but mostly enabled reflection. I dated sporadically, seeking partners valuing depth over flash. Shaped by Margaret's lesson. Visiting her grave monthly. I'd sit with flowers. Sharing updates, student successes. Acts of unearned kindness. Wind through trees sometimes evoked her voice, softened, grateful. The transformation deepened over months. Teaching felt purposeful. I incorporated discussions on empathy in literature, using anonymous examples of difficult figures revealing vulnerability. Students opened up more, sharing stories of harsh guardians whose sharpness masked care or pain. Cleaning the Maple Lane house fully uncovered more artifacts, old letters from her youth detailing betrayals, a fiancé who vanished with savings, friends who exploited generosity. These explained the walls she tested relentlessly because trust once shattered her. I confided partially in a close friend, weighing the moral quandary of the eulogy lie. Was fabricating kindness ethical? The answer evolved. In granting dignity, I'd honored her humanity, mirroring the compassion she craved. A new relationship bloomed tentatively with a colleague who appreciated my patience. Our conversations echoed Margaret's insight. Hard exteriors often hid needs for connection. One night, alone in the house, I reread her letter, feeling the weight lift. The inheritance wasn't just financial, it carried wisdom. Judge less. See more. Difficult people deserve compassionate eyes. A year on, life stabilized. The house sold for practicality, proceeds invested wisely. I mentored students facing family pressures, offering the benefit of doubt Margaret taught indirectly. Family remained distant, unaware or resentful. I chose privacy to avoid conflict, letting them believe charity claims. Grave visits brought peace. Whispering thanks. I sensed closure. Her final test wasn't about lies, but choosing love amid flaws, hope over cynicism. The story lingers, in a world quick to dismiss the difficult. What if we paused? Extended grace first? Margaret's hidden heart reminds us, compassion transforms, revealing good where none seemed present. Her gift was understanding everyone merits seeing beyond surfaces, even when hardest to love.